coordinator of the MetLAC community practice. We are going to present our community today. And we're going to have this open webinar today. It's one of our activities as practice community. And we're going to talk about financing organic waste management projects through the carbon market. This session has simultaneous interpretation available. If you need that, please select this option. The presentations are going to be in Spanish. So if you would like to listen to the interpretation, please select the icon and select the English channel. We're going to tell you a little bit about MetLAC. We are a practice community, and here you can see our partners: Recycle Organics, ImplementaSur, LEDS LAC, Global Methane Hub, and CCAP. Our practice community has a general objective that is promote and support the development of public policies, business models, and investment projects to reduce methane emissions from organic sources in Latin America and the Caribbean. If you would like to know more about our practice community, you have the QR code here, so you can go and know more about our activities, our mission, and also the activities that we have held as community. We are 36 member institutions from 12 countries in Latin America, including Argentina, Barbados, Belize, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Grenada, Honduras, Mexico, Peru, and Guatemala. And it is a pleasure to start with this webinar so you can know more about this topic. This is our agenda. This event is going to last for 1.5 hours. First, we're going to have an introductory presentation regarding an overview of the carbon market and its relationship with the waste sector by Sebastián Lema from CCAP. Then we're going to have a case study presentation regarding a sustainable bioenergy and organic residues projects through carbon credit mechanisms. This presentation is going to be by Frances Grau. Thank you very much for being here from Atmosphere. Then we're going to have a discussion panel by two Adrianas, Adriana Maldonado and Adriana Velasco. The first one is from Sistema Bio Colombia, and the other one is from the South Pole. Then we're going to have a discussion based on questions and comments from the audience that is going to be moderated by ImplementaSur, and then we're going to have some conclusions and the closing part. Some general instructions before starting. The webinar is being recorded. We are going to receive general comments through the Zoom chat, and also we have a Zoom Q&A section, so you can type all of your questions. And the session materials will be available in the MetLAC website. This is all going to be recorded in our website and specifically in the MetLAC practice community. Now we're going to have an activity. We want to get to know you, to know each other. So we want to know from where are you connecting, from where are you from. Please go into this Menti link. You can see also the link in the chat, or you can scan this QR code. We're going to wait a minute so everyone can answer. Please go into the Menti and you can enter this or answer this question. Okay, we're seeing some answers here. Argentina, the larger the font, the more answers we have from that country. So we have Argentina, Colombia, Canada, United States, Ecuador. We are very glad to have you here. We also have people from Costa Rica, Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico as well. We also have people from Africa. I'm reading that in the chat, from the United States. Welcome to all of you. Many people from Argentina, Colombia, and Guatemala. That is very positive. So thank you very much for providing this information. We are really interested about what country you're connecting from. And I think that these topics are interesting for many countries, also the Dominican Republic. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to give the floor to Santiago Uribe from CCAP, who is going to present our next speaker. Go ahead, please, Santiago. Thank you very much, Aida. And to start, I would like to present Sebastian Lema, who works as Director of Carbon Markets in CCAP. And he's going to provide an introductory presentation for today's session. Go ahead, please. Perfect. Thank you very much, Santiago, and thank you very much for the invitation. This is a very relevant topic for the community, and that generates many questions from all the stakeholders in the projects for waste management. We want to know if it's possible to access to carbon market financing. I have a presentation. Could you confirm, please, how much time do I have for the presentation? Yes. For this presentation, we have exactly 20 minutes. Great. Could you confirm if you can see my presentation, please? Well, I'm going to present some basic concepts regarding carbon markets, so we can be in the same page. Maybe some of our attendees already know about this topic, but we would like to have this basic information to have a discussion. I'm going to explain what carbon markets are. We're also going to see some trends, some global trends in this market, and also we're going to present some of the challenges. And then we're going to move into a specific case that is going to be presented by the next speaker. The first question is, what are carbon markets? Basically, a carbon market is very similar to any type of market. It's a space where there are some sellers and some buyers and some goods that are being sold, that in this case are carbon certificates. And we have a first challenge that we are selling something that is not concrete. It's not something that we are going to see. We do not see methane or CO2 that is being traded in this market. What we are trading are these carbon credits that have an equivalent. CO2 is the most important gas, but other gases such as methane are also being traded. The buyers could be companies or countries that need to offset these emissions. This could be as a voluntary initiative, or the market also could be regulated. And we also have these projects or these sellers that may develop this kind of projects. In this graph, you can see that there are two types of markets. The first one is the regulated. And the difference with the voluntary market is that we have a government or organization, a body that regulates, for example, that each company is going to have an emission limit. For example, 100 tons per year. And we have two companies here, the one with the red tip and the one with the green tip. And this body regulates the exchange market. So if the company surpass the tons, we are going to share or sell this to the other one. So this is an exchange mechanism. Then we have also the voluntary market. Basically, in this kind of market, a company is going to say, I would like to reduce my emissions, not because I have a limit established by the government or maybe an international body, but for that, they are going to go into this voluntary market to find these certificates. And the regulated markets are usually these emission trading systems. The best known is the one from the European Union and also some countries of the region. Here we have a graph that shows the functioning of this type of carbon voluntary market. Many times when we are talking about these markets, we talk about certificates and also the trading system. So usually we have a project developer and developer of any kind of projects. For example, for waste management, and they are going to improve the practices that are developed to this project to try to reduce methane emissions or also reduce CO2 emissions. So the project developer usually starts to develop the carbon project. And for that, it needs to choose a methodology. That means how to know how many tons of CO2 or methane their project is going to generate. For that, they go to the certification program that already has these methodologies. And they apply this methodology in their projects. There is other partner that verifies this project and validates that the methodology has been implemented and also issues a verification report. And then we are going to see how much tons this project is going to generate, how many tons. And after issuing the certificates, we have also the buyer who is going to buy these certificates. Here we can see the trends and the different stakeholders. Here we can see the amount of projects per industry. Here we are not seeing the tons, but we are seeing the amount of projects that were developed during the last 5 years. At an international level, one of the sectors that have the largest amount of these projects is renewable energy, also waste disposal. That is the one that interests us, but has a very low participation, as you can see here in these graphs. And here we can see more detailed information regarding these trends. In 2022 and 2023, we are seeing some numbers, the volume in millions of tons of CO2 for the different industries. We can see in 2022, the waste disposal sector had 6.2 million tons, and in 1.5 in 2023. This data is obtained by a report that was prepared by the marketplace. One of the challenges of these markets is that usually the transactions are made directly between the buyer and the seller. So they are not used in an open market where we can identify all these numbers. So this information, this data is obtained from this report that are voluntarily issued by the project developers. And maybe some projects are not included in this category. But this information allows us to have an idea, a general idea regarding the size of the carbon market at a global level. And also we can see the transaction volume for the waste disposal sector and also the prices. So here we can see the different prices in 2022. The average price for these transactions in the waste disposal sector was $7.23, and for 2023 was 7.48. And we can also see a drop here. Going into detail in the waste management sector, one of the questions is what kind of projects could we generate in this industry, in the waste management? And here I am presenting some of the examples of methodologies that are being used or the main standards to generate carbon credits in this sector. First, we have the gold standard that tries to reduce methane emissions from the landfills through managing organic waste. Also, the methodology for collecting microalgae to avoid this kind of emissions. Also, to reduce the GHG emissions, and also carbon credit methodologies for recycling food. We also have another standard that is Vera that try to recover and recycle the materials from solid waste. Also, it focuses on energetic efficiency and activities, and also methodology to reduce the loss and waste of food. So here we have some examples of methodologies that we have already implemented. And we don't have a specific methodology for a project. But it doesn't mean that this project is not going to be developed, because many of these methodologies start with a pilot project. So I would say I have this project that is going to generate some methane and I want to reduce these emissions. And from that, we're going to develop a special methodology for that specific project. And we also have these two, American Carbon Registry and Ser Carbono, that try to use the gases from the landfills. And here we also have some data from the same organization, Ecosystem Marketplace, that is showing this information from the waste management sector. First, the issuances and the retirements. So we can see the trends during the last 20 years. And it is important to understand this information. This information is related to carbon projects that are related to methane management in organic waste, in activities that are related to renewable energy. So they are not classifying this report as waste-related projects, but as energy-related projects. And they also include the recycling of materials to avoid these emissions. And this is related to the graph that I just presented before regarding the prices. So even if the transaction volume of this type of projects decreased from 2022 to 2023, we need to consider that the price has been kept stable. We need to consider that during the recent years, the voluntary carbon market has been facing some challenges, some critics, and that is why the prices have dropped and also the demand has dropped. So in the report, we can see that despite this drop, it is very interesting that the prices have been kept stable. Because maybe the methodologies were improved. Or another possible reason is that even if we have had this crisis in this market, this type of projects are still reliable for the buyers. Finally, we can see that most of these projects are located in Latin America and in North America and the Caribbean. And here we can see some information related to the challenges and the critics that we have seen in the carbon market during recent years. Many of these critics were not related to the waste management sector, but other kinds of projects. And this is a market that is not regulated. Because of that, many of these impacts have been generated by this kind of news that were published in different communication media, international news and also local media. Some media in Colombia as well. And basically, these news are questioning two specific aspects for the carbon markets. The first one is the environmental help, if these projects are indeed reducing the emissions or not. And the other critique is related to the social conflict. Basically, they are saying that the carbon project has some benefits, but they are questioning if these benefits are reaching all the stakeholders. Or, for example, if the previous consultation with indigenous communities are being respected. So to try to summarize these main environmental and social risks, we have this chart. From the environmental perspective, we have a low additionality. So this helps us to define if the project indeed reduced emissions. I think that we need to consider that when we have these regulations, if the development of the project is going to implement regulations and maybe they are not generating this additionality, because this should be measures that needed to be implemented by law. Another aspect is regarding leak. For example, I have developed a project in an area, but maybe this project is going to increase emissions in another area. Non-permanence is to guarantee that these emissions or this reduction of emissions is going to be long-term. And double accountability, it means that basically one reduction is accounted for two agents. Maybe they account this emission for two countries, for example, in the same period of time. And regarding social risks, these are not direct impacts for the waste management industry. So we have some social aspects to guarantee that there is a previous consultation and also socialization with all the communities, agents, also to take care of these conflicts and damages that were generated to these communities. Many times with these communities receive income, it could generate some internal conflicts. And even though these are not aspects that are related directly to waste management projects, of course, it is important that we consider these aspects, these possible issues, so we can work with the communities. Well, this was my presentation. If you have any questions or comments, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that we've been picking up some questions in the chat box, so that at the very end of the session, we will have a Q&A section to address some specific questions that were made for you. But then if we have other general questions, we can, again, review them later on. So now we will continue with the panel that we have for today. Again, I encourage you to make questions and to leave them in the chat box. So now moving forward, we will continue with the case study presentation. So again, we are not going to have the discussion panel just yet. We are going to review a case study presentation on sustainable bioenergy and organic residues projects through carbon credit mechanisms. I will now give the floor to Francis Grau from ImplementaSur. All right, thank you so much. I'm a project analyst at ImplementaSur, and now I would like to share a little bit more on the organization. There are several topics that maybe Sebastian has already covered. So can you please confirm that you're able to see my screen? Yes, we do. Go ahead, please. All right, perfect. So I would like to present ImplementaSur and what ImplementaSur is. ImplementaSur is a nonprofit organization, a German nonprofit organization, and we contribute to the mitigation of CO2 emissions by seeking social and environmental impact. I think that Sebastian has already explained this a little bit, and what we do is to have a project distribution, and then, for example, we try to find a source of biomass where we are finding carbon or either methane emissions, and then we take that source and we manage that through the local communities or local partners, because we always want to foster these local partnerships. And then there's another stage for an external audit or certification process, because sometimes for these carbon projects, it may seem that the processes are very easy to follow or it's easy money. However, it's not at all. So we want to do and perform very rigorous steps to get to our certifications. So in a sort of way, we find how the circle is being closed through our different clients, and our target is obviously German clients. So in the German market, what we see is that we have some corporate companies such as Volkswagen and many other companies that, thanks to these carbon credits, they can also do corporate partnerships and make decisions. So then I will just want to share a very quick overview on the main region that we are located or targeted to. We work a lot with the Global South, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And then we usually work with wind, hydro, and solar energies. We also work on what efficient cook stoves in Africa specifically. And then we manage everything regarding biogas and biomass. We have an e-kerosene plant in Germany. And we are also highly interested in all the projects regarding biogas and biomass, regarding compost, and everything regarding those very trending topics as of today. So here you can see that we have been conducting projects in different countries of the world, such as in Mongolia, Tanzania, Brazil, India, Malawi. And I know that these pictures look very, very nice, but now I would like to share a little bit on the background of how we got here. Here we have the control and supervision at ImplementaSur, since we have an advisory board coming from a supervisory board as well from the German authorities or German institutions that are supervising and monitoring the projects and that ensure quality in our projects. And first of all, I would like to touch on conflicts. I know that it's very important to mention this topic since it's not a fully clean market, and we acknowledge that there has been a lot of conflicts when talking about the carbon markets. And now we've had some news from last year, 2023, and related to what Sebastian was sharing regarding the land use, regarding hot air purchasing or sellings, and the relationship with indigenous communities as well. So I think that this is something that happens, and unfortunately this has created very negative consequences to our markets, and this has shaped in some sort of way how we are managing our projects. And we want to be very careful with what would be the end use of the credits. And then there are certain things that we can say and that we cannot when using these credits. And that's also highly important to keep into mind, to have an appropriate use of the carbon credits. And I know I'm going a little bit fast, but we'll check on how can we compensate the carbon emissions. We want to get to the 1.5. I know that we would want to get to 2 degrees, but that's what we're currently working on. And we want to work with the corporate side and the stakeholders. So we have some key factors, key elements that represent really responsible compensation when talking about the carbon market. So we have additionalities first, that are some sort of the main drivers of these projects. So when talking about finance, at some point, there are some financing barriers, or sometimes we can have issues on bureaucratic workload or on the lack of technologies. But we want to make these projects feasible. So I think that additionality and all of these other key elements make the projects to become permanent in time. So this element could be more relevant to some projects rather than others, but we are currently working on permanence. I think that the social pillar in our projects is highly important. We not only want to highlight the climate aspect of it, but we also want to work it with the social impact that there is, that it's inherently related to climate and to sustainability within our projects. So we do that by providing an eco standard through certifications that are more related to the SDGs and regarding to Article 6. But we have an extra criterion that goes beyond that, and we always are trying to highlight the social aspect in our projects. And what I was mentioning just now of the gold standard, we have many standards, and I'm aware of that, but at some point we're talking about this as these supervising bodies that allow some control and monitoring throughout the whole processes and throughout all stages until we get the emission of the carbon credits. And it's very important to have all of these tools that will ensure that we're actually producing high quality carbon credits. And from there, there's also an additional monitoring, not only on our end, but there's also some external audits that want to make us comply with all of these high standards. And then there's other rating agencies, and there are some other stakeholders in the market that in a certain way provide additional support to the performance of the projects, like ICDCM or BCMI at the purchasing side. And then we, of course, want to avoid double counting. And this is something that Sebastian already mentioned, but at a certain point, I would like to highlight again its importance. We want to make the countries to get some alignment with this mindset, right? That we only want to authorize the projects and to make them feasible without having the double counting. Because of course, then credibility would decrease again for carbon credits and for the whole mechanisms overall. So then this very quick summary of where atmosphere is in the whole processes. So we get involved since the very early stages of the projects, once the project is being developed, until getting financing, until the implementation of the projects, and then until we get the whole marketing of the credits. And we provide tailor-made mechanisms to all of our different projects because they are all very unique. And I think that we've been able to deal with different challenges. So I think that we're very resilient. And then we manage the whole final process of marketing the carbon credits to be able to retrieve or to withdraw the carbon credits, and then to share the knowledge and the lessons learned. We are very happy to be able to implement this project with our partners and to be able to conduct these projects together, because I know that maybe my presentation is somewhat theoretical, but now let's move forward with practice. So what's actually going on in ground? I would like to share now 2 different projects regarding organic waste management. First of all, in India, we have this project when we are generating electricity out of mustard organic waste. Then this organic waste was being burned at some point in the field. And then we made this partnership with a local community to create this plant that was connected to the network. And what we do here, the network is very dirty. It's really dependent on fossil fuels. And we want to use biomass, which is considered a cleaner source of energy. And then by that, we are reducing the emissions that are usually associated with the network. Because again, the network before was very dependent on fossil fuels. So that's the climate aspect. But again, we always have a social aspect, that we are generating jobs, that we are helping out the farmers to have an additional source of income, because now this biomass that used to be burned or that was just left to rot in the fields is now being used, so their quality of life improves. And at a certain point, again, we are proving that that technology is useful and works. So then some other sectors could also aspire to conduct and implement such projects locally. This is a very big project. And we are generating approximately 8 megawatts. And we are providing electricity to 25,000 households. We have this project in Nepal, and we are having small-scale biogas plants. And then we happen to get together with the farmers that used to have 3 or 4 cows, and then they would generate some organic waste coming from the cows. And this is managed at a very small scale. So then we are using such waste, and then this becomes a substitute for wood that wasn't really a very sustainable practice. And all of this energy is being used for cooking. And this is generating big impact to prevent deforestation. And again, there's the climate action. And then again, there's the social aspect of it, because we are providing clean and sustainable alternatives for cooking. And it obviously, again, improves the quality of life of the farmers and the local people, the locals. And again, we have in Tanzania, we have an organic waste management project that is related to compost. And here, before, we used to have all of these waste going into the landfills. And now, instead of just having the waste going into landfills, we're using them for compost. We're having this machinery that avoids these decomposition that is produced by methane. And again, this is used as a fertilizer that is used to replace chemical fertilizers. So this is a very good project. We are having, again, our climate impact and social aspect by providing technology, and again, by displacing the chemical fertilizers that were used before. Francis, I'm not sure if you're able to remove the subtitles from your presentation. I don't know if you can do that. All right, thank you. Go ahead, please. So here we can have some examples of the next steps of what we're currently looking at. So what kind of projects can work? That's also one of the questions. That's always one of the questions that we receive. So what are these mechanisms that we want to implement? We want scalable projects that will be producing or reducing the emissions of 10,000 tons of CO2 per year. But again, it should be scalable. We can start off with more with smaller projects, but then they should be scalable. We want to work with transformative technologies, and we want to take some risks, so then we can also get some other agents involved to complete the project. We also want to become a sustainable business model. We want to demonstrate our experience. We're looking for partners that have worked already in some pilot project or in some similar project. So again, we're working with sustainable business models, and sometimes that is very difficult to portray, but it's important for these projects to be mature enough for us to work on and get our hands into it. We want to foster sustainable development. We want to be able to foster further long-term partnerships, and we want to make the outstanding revisions, because we want these projects to last for a certain amount of years. And again, to do the right revisions. And sometimes that could be a setback at some point, because we're looking on how each country is getting development, or how each country is growing. So on top of these mechanisms, how can we really create a further articulation to adapt ourselves to each country's context? So again, we have some other criteria on the biomass sustainability. For us, this is a very key factor. We want to avoid biomass to have any sort of relationship with deforestation or with conflicts of use. So once you're using the biomass for a project, and then you're forcing people to use biomass instead of using a different project. So we want to avoid having such conflicts at all times. We are also very focused on projects that use biomass for the environmental protection. We are not interested in projects that have some waste from industrial processes, and where the soil is being highly used, or where chemical fertilizers are used indistinctly. And we are very fond to biodiversity, to human rights protection and small-scale agriculture, and we want to prioritize the local use. And here we have a study that is not fully completed just yet, but it's on atmosphere and biomass. So now I would like to move forward with what are the requirements for the projects to be scalable. And this is something that we can see throughout many of these presentations. We want to find a sustainable biomass source without conflicts of use, so no energy crops. This technology, where technology is not established locally. We have some other challenges regarding to sustainable feedstock logistics, to the maintenance of process stability and efficiency, sometimes regarding maintaining process stability and efficiency and degradation and spoilage of raw materials. But we're also talking about really positive consequences that I would like to mention, such as a long-term maintenance and service agreement with long-term service and benefits for the local community. The technology that is being applied for each type of projects should also be thought of. We are talking about some projects regarding anaerobic digestion and composting, as the one that I mentioned in India and Nepal, that we are producing energy thanks to these anaerobic digestion and biomass. So for that, supply becomes a challenge, and to use biomass sources with little to no analysis, or this lack of evidence if this type of biomass could really work for generating energy. And again, the last thing that I wanted to mention was regarding biochar. And we are also managing waste. Even if solid waste is not such a good source of energy for the project, but then again, we're using waste, and this is a very new project. There's a lot of uncertainties going on trying to figure out where the biomass is being generated and if we can sell the biomass at a certain point, or how can we implement the biochar regarding the soils. So here there are a lot of challenges, and then we can see this in depth in case anyone has a question. So again, to wrap up, what is it that we do? We find these projects that are lacking financing, that are lacking resources, that need our support, and we make them a reality. We provide them with financing, and by applying our experience at the carbon market, we provide with further support to make the sales happen. And then regarding waste, there's a lot of work to do. So we are seeking for these projects, and now I'm open to hear some of your questions and to see what are the next steps. So thank you so much. Francis, that was an excellent presentation. So now we are getting many congratulation comments from all of the people that are joining us. We have more than 200 people joining us, almost 200 people joining us. It was an excellent presentation. I will now tell you that maybe if possible, you could check some questions in the chat box and answer some, if you may. So now, I was getting very excited with the panel a bit ago. So now we do have our discussion panel. I would like to introduce Adriana Maldonado, who is the Director of Alliances at Sistema Bio Colombia. She has a lot of experience working at the local and rural communities in Latin America and the Caribbean. And this represents a sustainable experience for the fishing and agricultural sector. And with us, we have Luz Adriana Velasco, who is a business and market manager at South Pole. She's based in Colombia, and she's leading she's managing the accounts for Latin America by promoting the growth on a normative framework and to provide climate advice. And she works on the reduction of greenhouse gases. So now please be welcome. Now we can go ahead with the discussion panel. Thank you. So now I will start off with the first question for the two of you. If you could share a little bit on the experience working in these carbon market projects, and what initiatives have you implemented until now?
Thank you very much for the invitation, for having me here. And currently at South Pole, we are working, for example, with a big farm in Mexico. And in this farm, we are developing a biodigestion project for the animal waste. And this process uses biodigesters to transform this waste in biogas. And then we use the biogas in two ways. The first one is to generate energy that is being connected and distributed through the network directly. And the second use is to replace the use of natural gas with the methane that we are collecting. So we do not only reduce the emissions, but we also prevent the waste, not only from the farm animals, but also the waste from the area to go to the water bodies, that is a very common situation, or that generates these smells that usually the waste have. And The carbon credits help us here because it allows us to close the financial gap that we had to develop this project. And they make this project economically viable. Now in the farm, we also have some solar panels to generate energy, so we can keep this temperature that we need for the biodigesters. And we are currently in a monitoring stage, and we are expecting to run the first verification stage next year. The project's credit life is 10 years. After this period, this 10-year period, the project is going to be large enough to generate its own income. And besides the resources, we try to extend this project in the midterm. Thank you very much, Adriana. And now Adriana Maldonado, please. We have a lot of Adrianas here. Thank you very much. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here and to be part of these webinars and to share with so many cultures. I am representing Sistema Bio. Sistema Bio is a leading company producing biogas. We are located everywhere. Our technology has reached more than 31 countries, and we have 4 main offices in Kenya, Mexico, Colombia, and India. Regarding our experience, we are a B Corp company. We have an innovative biodigestion technology and a comprehensive package that is shared with financing and also training. And we face challenges related to poverty in rural sections. So we presented a project, a voluntary project under the gold standard to reduce emissions. This initiative installs biodigesters from different sizes. We focus on meat and small size producers and farmers. Depending on the context where we develop the project, we focus on the challenge that we are facing. If it is a domestic situation or if it's a production-related challenge. The project in Colombia is going to install 3,000 systems. This is our goal. We started in June. The duration is going to be 2 years to reach this goal. We have installed 350 systems under the carbon program. And this initial stage is going to last for 5 years, with the possibility to have 2 renewals in 10 and 15 years. We have also installed around 36,000 systems in India and 3,000 in Mexico, in Malawi 200, and in Kenya around 9,000 systems. So this is our initial experience. Thank you very much, Adriana. We have many questions for you. And now Adriana Velasco. Maybe one of the participants who is in this webinar is interested to have this kind of projects. What are the concrete steps that you would suggest to implement this kind of project in Latin America and the Caribbean? Well, as Sebastian and Frances presented, they have provided a very clear steps that we are always going to repeat. So to have a low emission standard certification, first, we need to comply with the eligibility criteria. We are going to start with a start date. According to the standard or the methodology, it could be the moment where they obtained the first system, or maybe the date where they started to reduce the emissions or to collect the emissions. Before this start date, we need a local consultation with all the partnerships and all the stakeholders. We need to mention the benefits, and also we need to share the characteristics of the project. We need to listen to the stakeholders. We need to answer any concerns that they may have. After that, we need to show that the project needs this financing to try to overcome the gaps, the financial gaps or technological gaps. And we need to guarantee for the waste management projects that they are complying to have the systems for the monitoring. For example, for the biogas projects, we need to install some flux measures, some flux instruments. And for composting projects, we need to install some measuring systems for temperature, humidity, pH. So we need that they have this equipment, a good quality equipment, to comply with monitoring. Thank you very much. And for Adriana Maldonado, you mentioned some projects. Which have been the main challenges to access the carbon market? You're muted. Well, the challenges that we currently have in the program's operation is first, the training to the technicians that are going to operate the project. We think that this training is essential, not only related technology, but also that they have the capacity to train other people, the beneficiaries. This was one of the main challenge. The other challenge is the knowledge appropriation in the territory. This has been a very important challenge. We are going to have this project for 5 years. It's going to have a 5-year monitoring. And the beneficiaries of the technology need to also get the knowledge. And when the project moves away, we need to be able to scale its impact. Another huge challenge has been the measuring of the recollection. We already have a technological development that is going to allow us to monitor online these operations in the field. And another challenge is to guarantee that these systems are indeed working daily. These are the challenges and some of the strategies. I don't know if I'm moving to the other question, or should I stop here? Yes, let's stop here and let's move to Adriana. And remembering what Sebastian mentioned and what Francis presented regarding the current critics to the carbon market, especially regarding environmental and social integrity, what will be the suggestions that you would provide to the project developers to guarantee the success? Please go ahead, Adriana Velasco. Yeah, you can call me Luz, so we don't get a confusion. Okay, perfect, Luz. Well, first, we need to know that the projects are developed in our current context. We are living in this kind of society, but we have a consensus knowing that we need to start to develop this kind of activities to comply with the emission reduction or temperature reduction. This implies that we need to leverage all the instruments that we have available. And one of these instruments, it's only one, it's not the solution, but one of these instruments is the carbon market. Carbon market is an agile and dynamic instrument that allows many stakeholders to engage. So the market is one instrument. The main critic is because they think this instrument is the solution, but it is not, it's just one instrument. So we need that the projects are reliable. This is another critic. To have reliability, we need to continuously renew this project, and the carbon market is always renewing. We are developing new technologies, we are renewing institutions, we are getting new stakeholders that are helping us to improve the system. So we are developing a healthy system. And as you have seen in the presentation by Francis, we need to move, or the project needs to be verified by a third party, the standard and an auditing agency. And for that, they need to present a monitoring report. That is why we need to have solid data, a sound monitoring process that guarantees that emissions are being reduced, also the possible leakage or the possible disadvantages that may be generated by the project. And also, this report needs to show a plan to correct this situation. Another questioning is the involvement of the stakeholders. So we need to generate these communication channels to receive all the complaints, all the questions, and all the suggestions, and of course, provide a prompt response. We need to guarantee the national, the local stakeholders, and we need to involve these third parties or these new rankings so we can make our project more transparent and more reliable. We keep repeating this part, but we need to follow this transparency process and involvement process. Thank you very much, Luz. And for you, Adriana, could you explain some challenges or questioning related to the integrity of these projects? Have you faced these challenges and how did you manage that? No. With this carbon program, we have not received any questioning really. We have faced challenges, collecting, guaranteeing that the systems are working, monitoring, but these are challenges related to the operation, but not related to questioning to this program. Okay, and we were talking about challenges and you wanted to mention the strategies or the opportunities. Please go ahead. Yes, because both were related, strategies and challenges. So I just wanted to add on. First, we had this issue because we didn't have this automatic monitoring process. And now we have resolved that. We have the technology that is going to allow us to run this continuous monitoring process. Now we have an in-field platform that works without internet, and we may locate the systems, and each of our system has a code, an ID code that is unique. And then we take this information to another platform to monitor, to follow up, and to know what has happened with this beneficiary after the technological implementation started. This was one of our strategies. Our technicians are always trained not only in technology, but also to transfer this knowledge to the beneficiaries. And this is a milestone to us. They need to have this technological appropriation. And we need to guarantee that the systems are going to continue to work in the 5-year period. So I just wanted to add that regarding the challenges. Perfect. I had some questions, but we're going to end with a very brief question for both of you. So we can have many of our participants who are going to share their comments and questions. We're going to select some questions at the end. So for you, Adriana Velasco, I would like, oh, Luz Adriana, I'm sorry. I would like to know about the Treaty of Paris, the approval, the Article 6. What is the impact of this approval in waste management in Latin America and the Caribbean in the COP29? Well, thank you. Thanks to this approval and this centralized mechanism, now we are having an opportunity for investment in projects that may be certified. And one of the available tools that generate this impact not only in emissions reduction, but that also generates impact in community, in the environment, are, for example, the waste management projects. These projects are also going to help me to an energy transition process. And they also help me to develop technology. So we create this good circle. So I think COPE has opened this opportunity, and we also have this information very clear. And this is going to engage many countries that are interested on investing in countries that have large opportunities, such as the Latin American countries. So we have this opportunity, and of course, we have some issues that we need to face, like the institutional issues and also the transparency issues. So I think we need to be optimistic because it is a very good change. Thank you very much. And to finish, Adriana, from your perspective, do you think that the carbon markets have been relevant to guarantee the financial viability of these projects? Yes, for us, this has been essential because this financial viability has allowed us to massify the technology, to reach more territories, to reach more communities. We are providing a high quality technological solution. We are helping them to solve issues that you may find in any Latin American rural area. And having the opportunity to have this technological implementation with a faster return on investment. This is not just a financial impact, but we are also impacting at an environmental and social level. So for us, has been essential. Thank you very much to both of you, Luz Adriana and Adriana. We would love to have more time with you discussing, because we know that many of our attendees have many questions, and that's why I'm going to give the floor to Ignacio now, so he can share what questions we are going to ask our former speakers. Go ahead, please, Ignacio.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. I was reading the questions on the Q&A section, and there are some questions for our very first speakers, for Sebastián and Francis, regarding, is it possible for a small-scale municipal composting plant, less than 5,000 tons per year of RO reception, to have access to climate finance through the carbon market? Well, if you may, I can start off in taking that question. So one of the challenges that are associated for small-scale projects are the transaction costs to the implementation process. And then Francis was showing us with some data of the specific requirements that they are looking for. Again, there is room for exploring what happens if there's not enough tons, for example. So we could do an umbrella project, and how can we manage that to reduce costs by scaling economies and to foster the financial viability of these small scale projects. Yes, Francis, would you like to add up to that? Yeah. I think that a challenge is also informality in the waste management, on how these waste is being managed. Sometimes we do not have a very crystal clear process, so we need to understand what is the baseline that there is to get to know what is currently happening with this waste. So when we try to implement the project, we seek to reduce the methane emissions that are associated to it, and again, to reduce the fixed costs. So again, we're always talking about projects that are scalable, because by that we are reducing the fixed costs. And then again, we also want to find a project that will be scalable, to start off with maybe small scale projects that could be scalable. Yes, thank you so much for that. Now I have a different question. So what conditions must be met by sanitary landfills, such as useful life or amount of waste, to carry out this type of project? I'm not sure if I have answered this, but I think that my answer would be related to what I just mentioned. We need to know what the current situation is, because what happens if these emissions are already being burnt, then you have some sort of limitations. Because if this could be used for the energy sector, if there are some other emissions regarding the network, because in Latin America, networks are usually not as clean. So there are some logistical aspects of it to see if the source is separated or not. And once you have that baseline that would be crystal clear, then you will answer the question if the project is viable or not. I know that my answer is more of a general answer, but we try to see each project on its own. Yeah, we have another question. If these carbon credits have a useful life. Yes, I can start off with that. Well, it really depends on the use of the carbon credits. To begin with, these do not come with an expiration date, let's say. But for some cases, like in Colombia, we want or we expect that the credit would not be further than 5 years old or greater than 5 years old. So that's why we see projects that are older than 5 years, then they have more reduced budget. Perfect, thank you so much. I have a question for Adriana Velasco. So what is the capacity of swine farms? We can manage around 40,000 heads per year. So I understand that, are these scalable? We're currently developing the project in an area where the economy is very dependent on this sector. So we want to replicate the project in other farms. Excellent, thank you so much. We have another question there in the chat that was regarding what's left of digestion. So we can use these as a natural fertilizer to foster soil recovery. And there was a question from Emma. What factor do you use for calculations or for estimations? So when you're running calculations, and that's why you count on an expert team, you need to understand what kind of waste it is, what kind of gases are we measuring, what kind of processing does it take. And again, these are all key factors that will allow us to see what would be the number that we're going to use. So there is not a one-size-fits-all solution, but we need to review different patterns. Thank you. I think we have room for one more question from the chat, and then if not, we can go ahead with the next section in the agenda. We have a question from Patricia. What are the permissible limits regarding generation of energy? Sorry, can you repeat the question, please? The question is, does Colombia have any permissible limits for energy conductivity? Maybe we can go ahead and take a look at and ask that question to the experts team, I think. And we have a question from Ivan that says, is a CO2 ton equivalent to a methane ton? So usually when we're developing a project, we use a common language that is CO2 equivalent, because otherwise it would be very difficult to manage more of a technical language, because it would be difficult to manage each credit for a specific type of gas. We have methane that is 25 times more powerful than just CO2, and we have some other gases going on as well. So again, the question would be, what kind of gas is the product issuing? And then we study it and we take it to our team. Thank you so much. And we have one last question from Fabio. So what are the conditions that sanitary fills should fulfill? Like service life of the quantity of waste to manage in these projects? Well, in here, what I can say is that, again, we need to take into account the start date of the fills regarding the standard and the measures that we would use if its operation started 2 years ago, for example. And then again, each project is very unique on its own. We have this framework, this methodology, but again, as the previous panelists already mentioned, there is not a one-size-fits-all solution. We want to implement improvements and further opportunities. We could review that, but again, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. All right, thank you so much. So now I would like to thank to all of the participants who asked questions, and now we can close with this Q&A section. Thank you so much, Ignacio. There were some other additional questions to our panelists. Maybe you can go ahead and write your answers down if you may. So again, we would like to thank to all of our participants for joining us in this webinar. I think that this is a very interesting topic to us. In this region, there are a lot of doubts, a lot of questions left. And what I want to make an echo of is that each project is very unique. Each project should be tailor-made designed, and we really need to establish a strong baseline of how we're going to implement the project, how are we going to certificate the project, how are we going to trade the bonuses, and that is very important. And then again, our speakers are very excited to get in touch with you and to answer your questions. So again, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge. I think that there has been a very broad interest throughout the session. We're running out of time, so unfortunately, we want to close our session. And I encourage you to follow us on social media. And these MetLAC webinars are always open webinars. These are webinars that you can share with other colleagues and friends. We are a closed organizations, but we're always streaming some open webinars. And there were many questions regarding the presentations, if they will be shared, but this presentation, this full meeting has been recorded and will be uploaded to our website. And again, now you have the contact information of our speakers. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We are left with 150 people joining, so that represents a high interest that the region has. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.